Perfect.
Good to go, Sam.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome. Good evening. This is the Executive Committee meeting for Manhattan Community Board 1. I'm Tammy Meltzer, the chair, and let's get rolling at 6:13. Let's pull the agenda up. I did get 2 requests for tonight that we move along as quickly and promptly as possible for people who want to watch the mayoral debates tonight. So if you are looking to watch television, honestly, I'm going as quick as I can. All right. So first thing is term limits for elected officers. And you may be wondering why I'm bringing this up. Well, we have term limits that go into effect for all community boards. It's 8 years. Our current bylaws allow the chair to sit in that chair upon re-election and to run 3 times, which is a 6-year tenure. I personally believe that the chair should not be able to be there more than 4 years. So half the time that you're a term limit. It will take you a couple of years to get yourself comfortable, 2 years to get sort of priorities and initiatives done or formulated, 2 more to carry them out. So you should not be able to be an elected officer for more than half the time that you are term limited on the board. I would like to change, yes, I understand this affects me, folks, but I would like to change the bylaws that would be effective after, as soon as if it passes full board, that it's only 2 consecutive terms that you can run. Thoughts, comments? Hands?
Yeah, I can't find the damn hand.
Colin, go for it.
Yeah, this is just an ethical, or not ethical, this is just an illogical thing for me. I've never liked term limits, and this is not to protect you.
Start video.
But I've never liked term limits. I think if someone isn't doing a good job, then someone should run against them. So I'll vote against it, but that's just purely out of my own ideology, and that's all.
Hello.
Perfect. Hi, Bruce.
Yes.
I can hear you clear.
Hi.
Can somebody?
Yeah, I'm
Bruce?
on the community board meeting right now on his.
Thank you. Anybody else with hands up? Pat, you've got Pat, and then I've got a dial-in user. I'm not sure who that is, but that's okay. And Lucian, please move Elizabeth Lewinson over. Pat, go for it.
I agree with Colin. Sorry, my audio is having trouble.
That's
If
okay.
the person is doing a bad job, let's vote them out. We're 50 members, 49, we can vote the person out. I don't agree with you. I think it's a nice idea, but I don't agree with you. I think we should keep, we used to have 2 term limits, and then we moved to 3, and that was because at the time we had a chair that was busy with a particular issue, and we needed to have that continuity. And I think that those things will happen again, where we'll have major topics that the chair is working on, along with the board, and we need to keep them in place to have that continuity and knowledge base.
I agree with that. That's really well said. Also, can I just say for the record, I'm sorry, now that we're on the record, I have 0 intention in running for a constitutional office again. So this does not affect me at all. So I will not run for any of the 3-4 major seats. So this has nothing to do with me. That's all.
All right.
I have a
How do
question.
you raise hand here? How do you? I'm trying
You
to
can't-
raise hand, but how do you do it?
Bruce,
You can't raise hand on this one.
Oh,
after,
okay.
after you, Bruce. After Elizabeth, you can go. I'll
see.
recognize you.
Okay.
Then the dial-in. Elizabeth?
Yeah, hi. So I just want to put out a different perspective, and I completely understand Colin and Pat and what they're saying. Like, if the person's not good, you'll vote them out, all of that sort of stuff. I get that. So on the personnel committee, we thought about this quite a bit when we were doing the bylaws and some other documents. And the thought is that 3 consecutive terms is 6 years. It's a lot of time to accomplish what you want to accomplish as a chair. And then there are reasons that people don't run for chair or officer positions, even though they may want to. People are busy. It's very easy to let the person who has always been there run again. A lot of times people don't want to run against the incumbent. So there are reasons that people won't run against a chair who's been there for a while. And having this term limit thing in place just shakes it up a little bit. I mean, there are instances too where people feel intimidated. Our votes, our elections are are all public information. You know who voted for whom. And I think that is very intimidating to people too. They don't want to, they want to, at least publicly, support somebody else, or may not want other people to know. So there is a reason for term limits here that could be good, could be compelling. And I just kind of wanted to put it out there. So, I don't think we should just dismiss this automatically.
Thank you, Elizabeth. After Elizabeth is Bruce. After Bruce is the person who's in the public, who I don't see who it is. And then I'll come back up to Betty, and then Detta, and then Yin Ying and Susan. All right, Bruce.
Hi, can you hear me without my sounding like a chipmunk this
Who
time?
sounds-
Much better this time.
Okay. So I unfortunately didn't hear the preceding conversations except for Elizabeth. And in this instance, I have to agree with Elizabeth. I do not believe in term limits. I think it's a mistake on the city council, and it's a mistake for citywide office. However, my experience over the last 23 years with the community board chairs is as follows. The first chair, who was sort of in an unlimited re-election cycle, was actually finally dragged off to prison, followed by Madeline Wills, who was duly elected twice and then was not reappointed by the Manhattan Borough President for nefarious reasons. She had no reason not to reappoint her, and the board even sent a petition, but she wouldn't listen, that borough president. Then we had a chair who sought higher office, which is fine. And then we had a chair, and may he rest in peace, who for health reasons should not have been chair so long. So there's been a real checkered history about overstaying as chair, whoever it is. And in this instance, I do believe the 3 terms is plenty. Thank you.
Bruce, I'm trying to make it 2 terms. I'm trying to say half.
I take everything back.
Bruce,
Okay.
I'm going to jump it to 2.
Well, that may be extreme too, Tammy. Okay.
I'm
Set
the
my
one who-
mouth.
All right. After Bruce was,
Yeah, Tammy, you're trying to drop it to 2, but why though? Sorry.
because honestly, I believe that if we're all term limited and we have no choice in term
I see.
limits, that you should not have one chair be there for 6 years, because you don't give enough variety and opportunity. Yes, I don't agree with
Okay.
term limits.
I hear that.
But I don't think that you offer enough robust opportunities. You would want to try and get your initiatives in, and in the second term, you want to be able to make sure that you're working with the other people on the board to bring up talent, to push
Right.
initiatives forward and maintain that energy level.
So that makes sense because we are all term limited. Yes, I agree that there should be more turnover and allow people to have the opportunity to be chair. If we were not term limited, I would say keep the 3 terms per chair. But now that we are term limited, yes, maybe there should be a little bit more variety, allow people to have those leadership opportunities. Yes, I agree with that. So that's different. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I want to clarify.
That's okay. I think the member of the public had their hand up. We normally go board members first. And since so many of my board chairs now, committee chairs have hands up, I will come back to the member of the public. Betty, and then Detta, Yining, Susan, Mariama.
Thank you, Tammy. I've been a long proponent, actually, of term limits. So, but especially since I just believe in turnover. And I think there's a lot of hesitancy to run against incumbents, which I think is a net loss for the group. There are times when somebody who's very strong is leaving a void because there's nobody stepping up in their place, but I think we can handle that. And this is also that you can't do more than 2 consecutively. It's not that somebody can't run again after taking a year break
That's
or a
right.
term break. So for people who are thinking this is a lifetime, and it really isn't. So given the amount of consecutive terms, you can be a member, period. We need to kind of speed things up from, I was in the group that entered as the first group that was term limited. So
Right.
there are lots of people sitting here who've been here for 30 years, and their view of time is very different from those of us who came in knowing time would be limited. And I think the whole process needs to be sped up. I think even looking at chairs of committees is going to have to be looked at some point. So I
Perfect.
strongly support a term limit on leadership positions for the whole board.
Thank you. Detta?
Oh, can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yep.
Hi, so Betty just answered my question because I wondered if this was like where somebody can only serve 4 years out of the 8 years, or but this is they can only serve 2 consecutive terms, then they can go off and they can run again.
Yep.
So I guess that's something to think about too, given that people can only be on the board for 8 years. I don't know if you want to be even more specific.
No, not
Uh,
particularly, because
Okay.
my whole role for having it be a maximum of 2 consecutive terms, that's one form of leadership. The person can always be a vice chair or run for a different position, but having them reelected to the same position should be limited, in my particular perspective, being in the chair. All right, Yinning, Susan, and Yinning, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Tammy. Hi everyone. My name is Yining. I'm the new to the board. I think my opinion probably changed after hearing Tammy said that the person can be elected to another position, not being the chair for the whole time. But my initial thought is that my background is in urban planning, and from a planning perspective, I would say that there are a lot of long-term plans, and that requires a long time to either monitor or plan for that. So I think the person should take charge of this and should be familiar with that for a long time. But if he or she can always be on the board and be involved in this process, I think it is good. But I would just think that I was just thinking from a planning perspective, we should keep some things not changing a lot, but keep something, be stable and be certain, especially there are so many uncertainties around us these days.
That is so true in CB1. Susan Cole. Susan?
Sorry. I don't love term limits because I happen to believe, like Colin and Pat, that you vote people out, and that if people are frightened to run against an incumbent, that kind of bothers me. However, I understand this, and I do sometimes think you need to mix it up a little. So at this moment, I'm on the fence, and we'll see how I vote. I can see everybody's opinion, which is unlike me. You know that.
We love that. Lucy, can you make sure you move Andrew Zelter over, please, and Mariama's next?
I agree with the new member. Yenning, is it? I don't want to mispronounce the name. And I don't have my glasses on. Yenning. Yeah, I agree with Yenning. For those reasons, I actually oppose the charter revision. I don't think that terms should have been limited to 8 years. However, I agree with much of what was said on both sides with regard to the internal workings of a board and reasons for mixing it up. And actually, with Betty, very much, I've thought many times that we that have been on the board for a while, some of us in chairships of committees, like the same people, as you said, 10, 20, 30 years, and that can limit the ability of the new people or newer people to participate and, even to gain some like education, sort of on the job training and doing more things than just raising their hand and answering questions. So I will probably vote with the majority on this. I definitely see value on both sides. And I think that if we maintained the 6 years, if somebody was chair for 4 years and no longer wanted to be chair, or, you know, felt that they'd been sitting there enough, then they can, you know, step down. They don't have to run against, you don't have to force somebody to run against the incumbent. You can say, I'm not running, you know.
I do, but what I also encourage is my thought process is we could leave it in place, but there's no way to put in the bylaws that I know that says if you are elected to a third term, you damn well better train somebody to take that spot, right? And you need to get moving on it. And I think that's kind of
well, particularly now that the charter revision has passed, and we do have, you're going to have a whole like an en masse exodus of, you know, historical like knowledge of what goes on in the board and memory of things that have passed or failed and what happened. Everyone's going to leave at like the same time. I think it's horrible that that thing passed, but it did. So I understand you trying to figure out how we can work with it.
Exactly. And by the way, I waited a year to see if any candidates of anybody was talking about changing that. There's been no discussion. Everybody seems to be like, yeah, of course. Whatever.
Yeah, it's awful.
Exactly. Alice, Eric, and then Paul. Susan, can you take your hand back down, please? And somebody, Pat?
So I was gonna, you know, I'm not sure how I feel about it all. We've talked about it, obviously, Tammy and I. You know, we're basically, if you come in on and you don't run until year 6, you only have 2 years anyway. So, you know, I'm not quite sure the math on it all. I will say one thing that I've noted being on the board for a long time is, you know, the point, and, you know, bravo on Yining's point about long-term planning. You know, that's great to hear. The committee chairs, I don't know if you want to put this in the resolution, but I do think that the idea, you know, that the board chair gets to shake that up, but that often doesn't get terribly shaken up. And I agree that 20 and 30 years, well, now it'll be just 8, you know, it's questionable as to, you know, how, you know, allowing other people to step up to the plate would be helpful in the committee chair position and co-chair position. And I'm not sure if that's something that has to be written into some regulation, but just in an awareness maybe in this resolution, if you're looking to term limit things, that might be included.
Thank you, Alice. Eric, and then Paul, and Lucian, if you can take a look in our attendee section. I think Pat Moore's stuck there, and Andrew, he's on a phone, so I'm not sure which one to move over.
I moved over one. It doesn't allow me with this, or I moved them over twice. Still don't know who the phone call person is. Maybe they want to speak now. I unmuted them.
Hi, who's on the phone? 917.
Can you hear me?
I can. Who is
Hello?
it? Hey, Mark.
Mark Emmer. Hi. Am I going? Am I speaking now?
You're on.
Okay. Okay. So leave me on off mute, and I'll mute the phone. So just a quick history lesson. So when we years ago changed the bylaws to the term limits for 3. Well, originally the thinking was, Bruce had mentioned it, there were fiefdoms and people were afraid to run. And back then, when you wanted to run for an elected position, the format was you wrote a letter, it was mailed, and then the night of the election at the full board meeting, you had 5 minutes to speak and also take questions within those 5 minutes. That was it. So we changed that to have the candidates night and a little more able for someone to campaign. But the paradox was, and we asked for guidance from the borough presidents on this, is that the election ballots are sunshine, are public record. So everybody knows how you vote and who you voted for. So that was the thing about if it was a secret ballot, you don't need term limits, because everyone would be afraid. Don't worry about, they're not going to know who I voted for. But because you have to put your name on the ballot and it's part of the public record and can be boiled and all that stuff, people, we thought, well, they could be these, someone will be in office forever, like happened previously. So that's why we put in the 6. We had a debate 4-6, 4-6, 4-6. We had, kind of, it was kind of even, but we thought at the end of the day that, if you're only there 2 terms and finally getting you going, your wheels rolling, and then bam, you're gone. So that's why we did the 3 terms. My thought on it now is that we're going to get a new borough president. There's going to be a new crop of community of city council people, and maybe these will have second thoughts about these 8-year term limits, because the institutional knowledge that a lot of people have, Bruce and Roger at Landmarks, myself and Susan at with liquor licenses, and on with everyone else. When they start seeing that all that stuff is really going to go away and the turnover is that quick, maybe they'll have second thoughts about it. With that being said, maybe we should address changing the 3 terms to 2 terms. Maybe we should wait a year and see what happens.
It's kind of interesting. Thanks, Mark, for that. I will say it's unusual for the current chair who's only been in half a term to say this, but I'm gonna say one thing. I operate the chair differently because my vice chair knows 98% of everything that goes on, except on the days I forget to talk to her, right? It's up to the individual chair to be that kind of a person. I've been around long enough to know that there were different chairs that did that and some chairs that have not. But either way, if you're there shorter and you have a greater sense of communication, then you can have continuity, which is really important for projects and long-term scope. But it also then, I think, provides a level of, you have to be forced to share the information. You must be forced to be a better manager and communicator and collaborative of a chair, simply because you don't have the luxury to sit your butt there for 6 out of 8 of your years. So that's my own opinion, having been in it for 1 and risen through.
Everyone does, unfortunately. Other chairs don't have the same perspective that you do, and we can get stuck with another one that doesn't. So. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, Mark. We're putting, please mute yourself. We're going to Eric and then Paul. Eric Flores, is your hand up?
Eric has to unmute.
Sorry.
That's
down
okay.
here. Is this a thing where you can run for this office for a 2-year term and then stop, take a year off, take a break, whatever, and then be able to run for 2 more consecutive terms? Or are we saying 2 terms during the 8th?
No, it's consecutive. So if you ran and I said at the end of June next year, I said, I'm out of here. And then I decided to come back, I could still run for 2 consecutive at that point. But again, you got to be elected into the position. So ideally, if you're a crappy leader, or people don't like your style or whatever reason, you get voted out. I mean, that's just is what it is.
My question isn't about if your level of leadership. It's what happens if you have a personal issue, what happens if you need to take care of a family member, whatever it is, then you're able to come back and then run for another consecutive 2 terms in a row.
Yeah, you could. Okay. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Paul?
Okay. I sort of go with the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't sense that we have a big issue of people who are interested, not running, etc. I mean, if anything, I'm concerned that we wouldn't have enough good people prepared to even run for some of these offices, especially chair. I mean, Tammy, you could tell people how much time you have to put in and what it means to your life. And it's not.
Never get somebody to run.
It's not for everyone. And, a lot of very good board members for that reason would not want to take it on. So it's not as though we have all these people knocking on the door to try to be chair. I don't know if that's really the fact. And I would also point out that we have had some long-serving chairs on this board who've been enormously popular and people love them. I mean, obviously, that doesn't guarantee that everyone who serves for a long period is in that category, but, you know, if you happen to have somebody who's doing a good job, why not leave them? And basically what we have in place is a compromise already. It's a compromise between people who are sort of more like me or Colin or a few others, you know, who don't think term limits are the greatest thing, and those who wanted some term limits. So we put something in not that long ago for the 3 consecutive years. So I sort of like the current system. Thank you.
All righty. So with that, I've hit all hands. Let's do a straw poll to see if we're gonna do a resolution on it, because there's no point otherwise. Lucian?
Probably gonna get a roll call.
Yeah.
I'm with Colin. You gotta do a roll call on it.
You want me to do a roll call? Okay.
Yeah, a roll call. I mean, let's do a roll call. Well, I guess I need to make the motion first. So the question is, I'm gonna make a motion. All right, I've heard everybody. I'm still sticking to my guns here because of term limits that are in. I'm gonna make a motion, and if it's seconded, we take a vote. If it's not, then we don't.
I'll give it a second. I don't mind seconding it, even though I'm going to vote. not.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
roll call.
For sport, here we go. Meltzer,
Yes.
blank.
You know what? I'm going to change the order sometimes here. It's always me second. Forget
Well,
it.
it's alphabetical, Alice.
No,
It's
all right.
okay.
Reverse Zelter. No,
She can do second,
Tammy, I feel-
excuse me. You
Yeah.
can do second roll call and wait till, sorry, Tammy, I see you shaking your head. I knew you were gonna say that. I hate that I read your mind sometimes. You can say second roll call, Alice, which means that they will go back to after everyone else's call.
Oh, I like
That's
that.
smart, Lucy.
No, I get it from Tammy.
But I know
Oh.
I won't do that. I don't need to do that. No, I just feel badly. But Tammy, I'm afraid like there's not enough of the sort of nuance of what I was describing about some of the other positions, particularly those chairs of committees. So I'm going to have to abstain right now on that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No worries. Go ahead.
Cole,
I don't want term limits.
So you want to leave the bylaws as is, correct? Not
Yes,
shorten.
yes.
so Cole
want to
opposed.
do
She's
again.
opposed. She's opposed to the tighter
Okay.
restriction.
Did Justine come in since we started?
No.
Justine, are you there? Okay. Ermin,
I, 3 is good. We don't need 2, so I guess I'm voting no. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Ermin opposed.
you.
Goldstein, thank you.
No.
Goldstein opposed. Mariama? James?
The second call.
Okay. Very well. Joyce?
Sorry. I sort of feel the way Mariama does. I'm just completely neutral on this, but I'm concerned also about nobody running, to be perfectly honest. So I guess I would vote against it.
Okay. Joyce opposed. Kay?
Yes.
Kay, yes. Patrick, are you there? Okay. Laura Starr, are you there? Elizabeth Lewinson?
I'm going to say I'm for it. And just to sort of, can I just make a comment on the point about being afraid no one's going to vote? No one's going to run. I'm not concerned about that. Sorry, am I allowed to make this comment now during the vote?
No.
I mean,
Yeah, okay. Just quickly, I'm not worried that no one's going to run for chair. I think people will. And one way to ensure that more people run for chair is to empower the vice chair a little bit more so that the chair and the vice chair can actually share responsibilities more equitably so that not everything falls on the chair. And the chair shouldn't have such an onerous job. Like we're all, we all have lives and we all work and do things, and this shouldn't be a full-time job for the chair.
Trust me,
For the
Alice.
record, there's plenty.
Alice works her tail off.
but I'm just saying, maybe we need more of that, you know?
Yep.
All right.
We've had discussion. Could we vote?
Yep. Lucian, keep going. You passed Lewinson.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I just want to double check. You're in favor then?
Yes, sorry, that's what I
Okay.
said. Yes.
Sorry, I just want, yeah. Mahoney?
Sorry, Tammy, you're not getting out of it. I'm a no.
More?
I agree with Colin. You ain't going nowhere, Tammy. No.
Is Brittany
love
Wade
you
with
guys.
us tonight?
Brittany is not.
Wade, okay. And coming back up to Mariama. James?
I think I heard more no, so I'm going no.
Okay. And then Trisha, did we say we're coming back to you or did you vote no already?
I voted no too.
Yeah, that's what I had for you. Okay. All right, so that's everyone. The measure fails.
Right.
Motion fails.
Can't blame a girl for trying. Okay, moving on in the agenda.
No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't blame a girl for trying.
There you go. All right, moving on, please.
Eat more bites of salmon and then broccoli.
I think it's pretty
I
cool that you put forth that resolution though, because other chairs did just the opposite.
You like roasted broccoli.
Like I said, Bruce, I'm definitely not your run-of-the-mill kind of chair. All right.
That's for sure. Thank goodness.
All right, so let's talk about rescinding the mayoral executive order. We got a letter this week about the mayor and the governor. Obviously, we know from the fireworks and everything, we're all very excited to get back to regular world. But the only parts of the mayoral executive order about the pops that was rescinded was about the indoor parts. So the indoor pops need to open their doors and admit the public again. Woohoo! I know we are all very excited, and there's lots of indoor beautiful pops in our neighborhood. The thing that is disconcerting is that there is still an aspect of this that is the mayor's executive order that allowed changes to be made in outdoor pops, i.e. 200 Water Street, where the entire pops has been taken over completely by a double set of city bike racks. So there's no public seating, there's no planters, there's no art, there's nothing that has been promised to the community, either by the developer or DCP, and it's one of the samples and examples of encroaching back on the pops. So we were initially concerned about the pops as a whole, but now we're really targeting back into the outdoor pops. So what we are looking to pass, if we have a possibility for it this evening, is a resolution that would go to the mayor's office asking them to rescind the part of the executive order for the pops that deals specifically with outdoor pops, not the indoors, because that's what he's already done. And that the adjustments, so here we go. It goes, so what we are asking for, right. Right. So the city bike rack, for example, at 200 Water was placed pursuant to Executive Order 128, which temporarily suspends POP's provisions to the extent of what is permitted under compliance protocols. So what we are asking for is to have the outdoor POPs included in the rescinding of the order to make sure that the POPs are now again compliant with DCP as they have been in the past. Now, do I have enough people who understand, or do I have questions and hands?
I think you need to, okay, go ahead.
We're going to go Susan, Betty, Alice. And by the way, we're using 200 Water as our example.
I think it's very good and I'm for it. I think it's needed. That's all I want to say.
Okay, Betty?
I'm concerned about the Mellon Bank is developing the space along West Street by, as you know, by Murray Street.
Yep.
As they develop that portion, isn't that going to be technically a POPs? It's a plaza. It's privately owned. There's a very popular city bike stop that's always been there. But just because they make it nicer, is it now going to be, you can't have a city bike station there anymore?
No, and in fact, we've already passed a resolution. We're not necessarily targeting City Bike. They already have a City Bike station that was included in their planning of their POPs. And if you remember, Millen Bank actually went so far as to try and remove it because they didn't want to include it anymore. And we actually stood up and said, we want it there, and that it was included, it's grandfathered, we want it. That's not it. It's about the DCP compliance for the other issues, for seating, for accessibility, for, all the things that the developers got the bonus for. And we were promised the plaza. We want all the restrictions and everything back.
Well, the accessibility was never included or never affected by the mayor's order. I just read that today. I was just concerned about unintended consequences. So if you're going into no city bike on POPs, there are these other POPs where in fact we've been asking for them. Would we be undermining our own requests? Is kind of my point.
Good point. But what we can do is we can put on there, we can carefully word it so we do not go and contradict ourselves when it comes to Millen Bank, specifically targeting that address.
What about the one on 150 Broadway, 140 Broadway?
They have a design cert that's different. That's a landmark. They have a design certification from
Very
DC.
different, and we already voted on that one too.
That one, Betty, has a design certificate that was voted on by DCP specifically. So that is permitted, and that's kind of what we're trying to get back to, is that that particular one, because it is landmarked, had a certification process, and that all the certification processes, which involve notification to the community board and approval, were wiped away with the executive order. What we want to do is have them go back to the DCP compliance for POPs, so we can get the public seating back and we can get the spaces back. And in particular, that bike rack was already included and approved. The Millen Bank one has already been included and approved. So we're just trying to get the ones that were not included and approved and to get the other seatings back. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks for clarifying that.
Okay, perfect. Pat, Mariama, Bruce, in that order, please.
Maybe you just clarified it for me. I was having one of those moments. I didn't understand what you're saying. So it just say it again, just quickly. What are we trying to do?
We want the mayor's executive order 128 to be fully rescinded, to include restoring the outdoor POPs to DCP compliance, because right now they only rescinded it for indoor POPs.
Okay, so that that they would reopen to the public the outdoor POPs, is what you're saying. Okay, that's clear. And then what about the one, I think you said it was 200 Water Street next to the Dwayne Reed,
Yeah.
from Fulton, and that's the one. So are they bringing back that POPs and removing the bike rack?
That's what we're asking for.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay, I'm in agreement.
Thank you. Mariama?
I think I'm next, but that was my question. I wanted to clarify that we're not saying get rid of City Bike. We're saying remove City Bike from where it previously hadn't been, and there had been seating and other uses for the public, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a
I'm cool with it.
There's a fantastic placard parking area right near 200 Water that they could.
Oh, I love those.
City Bike back in. I'm just
I
saying.
think, hey everyone, I think one way to put it is just return to pre-pandemic emergency power status for POPs rules, and because we're really looking to unwind those special transportation waivers that allows DOT to place transportation-related infrastructure on essentially DCP regulated space without having to really even get any approval.
Exactly.
But I think it should be tight, though, Lucian. I think it should be a tight. Sorry, dude.
That's okay. We're good. It'll have to be tightly worded. I agree.
Can
Bruce,
I call the question, or do we have to? Are there more people to speak?
3 hands up. I have Bruce, Alice, and Gerald. If they still want to speak, then let's. Bruce?
I just want to say quickly that that I really think the community board needs to have an overall and comprehensive review of City Bikes and Revel, because they're the stands that are eating up the city. At this point, the city wants to line Duane Street with City Bikes. There are already so many there, and they would be blocking small merchants up and down the street. And I think it's just gotten out of hand. I'm all for biking. I use it. Revel is next, but it's hurting at this point. It's hurting merchants and residents.
And you will take up that topic in transportation. Thank you, Bruce. Alice?
I just want to make everyone aware that the 240 Greenwich Street, which some folks were referring to 101 Barclay, you know, what's key here is that at this point, that interior Pops, which was called into question as to whether it was in fact a Pops, is now accessible to the public. And so folks should feel free to enter it and attempt to enter it, because this excuse of COVID is no longer upon it. However, the public access area that Betty's talking about at the back is not yet a done deal, because of course that came in the same package as the desire to take away that interior Pop. So I don't think we're completely finished with that. In respect to 200 Water Street, I would just say, Tammy, that this resolution should very clearly call out the fact that this community had to close down that arcade and is to be provided with this wonderful plaza that we have yet to see, in addition to obviously removing the bikes. And I would call that out on this resolution. What was promised to this community.
Whereas, yep. Okay, Gerald, do you have any questions? If not, you're my last.
I do, just a quick question.
Speak louder, please, Gerald. Sorry, into the mic.
Thank you. I'm on a different mic tonight. Apologies. Yes, question. Does City Bike? I don't know what the agreement is between City Bike and the city, but are they paying rent for these Pops?
No. And I will be happy to give you the long and sordid history of 200 Water in specific for that location, as well as the DOT. Speak to Betty long and hard or Lucian about the DOT requirement for rollout that has nothing to do with community need, but has to do with contract fulfillment.
Got it. I look forward to it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to
question.
Second. And if Lucian, if you can move Justine over, I see her, please. She's on. And because we did a roll call to start, I know Justine is here. We're going to do all in favor is just obviously. I'm going to call for all in favor. Are there any no's? And if you're going to vote no, you say something like your last name votes no. Are there any no's? Hearing none. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none. Are there any recusals? Hearing none, motion passes requesting to rescind the mayoral executive order in the Pops exterior and to return it to the DCP rules and regs. And we will put all the examples of 200 Water and others. Thank you. All right, moving along. Intro number 1572-2019. Do we have the gentleman here from RISC? Lucian or Jumani?
He said he would try to make it. This is being voted on tomorrow. So they said that, you know, it may be difficult if they're doing a lot of preparation, because I suppose they're lobbying on this. Now, the person I'm talking about is Alex from ANHD, which is a kind of like a neighborhood planning organization that is a big backer of RISC. But I can present on some information that some information resources that I do have on this topic, if that's okay with everyone. Yep. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so let me just add this to my share. Okay, so this is a page that was set up by the consortium that's backing RISC. So the the bill. Gosh, there's so many different little drawers and windows. It stands for Racial Impact Study Coalition. What they are looking to do is require HPD, and for those of you who are just new to this alphabet soup, it's Housing Preservation and Development. It's a city agency that's in charge of maintaining and creating affordable housing units in the city of New York. So HPD produced a citywide displacement risk index, a common baseline against which all major land use applications will be evaluated. Now there's a B version of the legislation. I'll show you the legislation on Legistar, which is the city's city council website. The Racial Impact Study Coalition is working to ensure that the city of New York meaningfully considers racial impacts in making major land use decisions. We are a coalition of neighborhood, community-based, and planning groups. Collectively, we represent all 5 boroughs. Most of the communities that have been impacted by city-initiated rezonings in recent years, a wide spectrum of New York residents. We share a commitment to protecting our communities from racialized displacement and expanding permanently affordable housing to all neighborhoods. So the devil that's in the details is that it's an index. It's going to be like a information portal that will be maintained by the city. So getting into the actual language, and here this is the B version of the legislation as proposed. There's a lot to go through, so I don't think we're going to make it through here, but the official description is similar to the page. It would require an online citywide equitable development data tool with citywide, borough-wide, and whereas statistically reliable data is available. So that is saying that they will probably try to fit it to Census Bureau geographies, whether the American Community Survey or the census, different census geographies, probably not down to the block level if they're being cagey about it there, but certainly there are larger geographies that data would be fairly accurate to fit in. Data would be provided for 6 specific categories, and be disaggregated by race and ethnicity where available. Racial equity reports on housing and opportunity would be required for certain land use applications using data from the Equitable Development Data Tool. The substance of racial equity reports would vary by application type, would all include a statement of how the proposed project, I'm sorry, this is my son is eating and is very happy about it, as you can hear. Project relates to the goals and strategies to affirmatively further fair housing and promote equitable access to opportunity. So taking a step back, what they're saying is that this would be likely a necessary part of ULURP. I believe my last read through that this did affect section 197C, which governs ULURP, and would allow for different rezoning actions or other sorts of ULURP actions to include, here we go, to include such reports. So when we get notice that there is a ULURP application, in that packet we would receive the explanation, the background, the draft EIS, and or no determination, and then probably somewhere tucked in would be this report. So I think that's pretty much the gist of it, without taking much more time. There is a lot here, and I saw some housing terms like kind of defining different levels of affordability and different types of affordable housing units. And so everyone should really dig in there, but it's a lot of really specific jargon that maybe would not serve this committee as well to dig into.
Okay, do I have some hands up for questions? Do I have anybody who wants to add anything to this? I see no hands up.
I'll just add that for our new members, we have some community boards have more than one council member that covers their geography. We only have one, that's Margaret Chin in the 1st Council District. And I'll just point out that Margaret Chin is currently a co-sponsor of this legislation.
Sorry, Tammy, I'm having technical difficulties. I just want to ask a question. So if we do nothing, what are we being asked to do? Just sort of acknowledge this, pass a resolution in support of it? What is our ask?
Well, I think that the ask is to be supportive of it. Even though through normal process, we won't have anything official issued by the time this votes. There's a vote on this. We certainly could have something in front of the mayor, assuming this passes, while the mayor considers whether to sign or veto.
I guess if it's something that's procedurally correct, I would make a motion to support this and support. Would that be something that's proper?
So I hear Tammy, I'm seeing that there's a motion to support this bill as written.
Yep. Does everybody, is there a second?
Second.
And so it goes.
Okay, I'm going to now stop sharing because I don't want everyone to see my vote sheet.
Because we're all here, we're going to go the same way we did before. So I'm going to assume that everybody's a yay. And we're going to go, are there any no's? And again, if you're going to vote no, abstain, or recuse, you must say your last name in your vote. Okay. Are there any no's? Are there any abstentions?
Okay, I abstain. And simply because while I'm very for the intent of this, I am concerned that I don't understand enough about the potential consequences, unintended consequences. So I abstain.
Thank you, Betty. Are any other abstentions?
Yes. Susan.
Susan abstains. Any other abstentions?
I agree with Betty.
Setting that up.
Goldstein would abstain as well.
Goldstein abstains. Thank you. I actually have not read the legislation, which is my bad. I usually try and read all of it. So I'm going to abstain only because I haven't read it, and that's just my bad.
Yeah, I have to say I will too. And I didn't realize we were voting on a resolution. Did it say that? I'm so sorry. I just saw that it says intro, but it doesn't say have a resolution. So in fairness, I wonder if this should be postponed if it can. I guess it can't be.
I think there's time, which is why I think that that's why I pushed it to that point, but I don't know. I'm sorry. I just think it's important. And I guess the reason why.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. To answer Alice's when you're voting, the reason why we didn't put resolution is because it's going before city council tomorrow and our council member already approved because she's a signer on the bill. So that's why it didn't say resolution, because I didn't think we needed to because she's already made that commitment. But Justine called the question, it got seconded, so we're rolling. So that's where we are. And Alice, your vote. Are you abstaining?
Abstaining, yeah.
Okay.
Did we get this legislation? Did we receive a copy so that we could read it?
I don't know if an individual link was sent out to the whole board.
I don't think there was. There was supposed to be a presentation by the public advocate and the group that's been facilitating the community outreach and activism on this. So I
also
understand it's a little
request
difficult to
that-
support.
I request we send out a link to everybody so that by the time we have the full board meeting, everyone will have read it. And I would like to request that since Jamani didn't make it tonight, can we ask him to come, even though the vote will have taken place, come to the Quality of Life Committee to give us more information.
So it's a land use item. In the land use committee, it would get presented in land use, and we'd love him to come. He could certainly do it at the full board if he'd like to make a presentation, if he can come there. But in lieu of not trying to stop the vote as it goes, we need to finish the vote call. So I think I'm done with abstentions. Are there any recusals? So I think I'm good. I think motion Lucian, you have to count. But I think motion carries. Perfect. So motion carries. Pat, I think he should come and do it to the full board for the widest audience personally. And he could be a featured speaker. That's not a problem.
That's fine
And
as soon as we get more information.
Yeah, the office was communicating with the organization, but they just weren't able to make it tonight.
yeah. All right. So let's move on our agenda. The motion passed. Off we go. Next. And points are all well taken. Yes, we will send out the link to the legislation and denote whether or not it has passed before full board. All right. State Liquor Authority legislation, discussion and possible resolution. I think Mark is here, and maybe Megan and Susan will be, oh, Susan's still here. She might be back. So there have been 2 legislations that are in front of the state legislature that have been signed, except for our representatives particularly, and they deal with open streets, open restaurants, and specifically targeting open restaurants. And some of the loopholes or gaps that we have seen, one of them extends the availability for open restaurants, which is the street seating portion of the law, for 1 year. And then there are also city legislations that are going on, putting some of the jurisdiction on actually putting all of the jurisdiction on open restaurants into Department of Transportation. So we want to have these discussions and potentially take a look at a resolution. We had already passed, I believe we passed some dialogue and resolution. Mark, are you able to talk on this? From licensing?
Yes. What do you need to know? And Susan's here too, right?
Yeah, she is.
Here for a little bit. I'm in and out. I have another crisis, but Mark can speak for us. We know what we think, and Tammy knows it too. So go for it, Mark.
Okay, so basically how we feel was that it was a good idea to help these restaurants recoup, the money because of the shutdown. But it's not something that's meant to last forever, and now it's kind of like the Wild West. Taking up parking streets are smaller. The noise, the quality of life is exponentially gotten a little worse because of it. So there needs to be time for some kind of regulation. And then, a lot of these structures are, they had like ad hoc, building codes, so to speak, if you want to call it that. But, these things aren't meant to last more than a year, a couple of years. You get one big hurricane, these things will be flying all over the place, except for maybe very few exceptions that were made well. So we need, I hate to say this, we need some type of regulation or rescinding some of it, because it's just so much of it, and that was the issue. And whether DOT is the right entity. How many times have we tried to deal with them with certain things, and it doesn't work out. So as an enforcement agency for this, when there are quality of life issues, they don't know if they're qualified for that. So I guess that's kind of in a nutshell, Susan, if you want to add anything.
The only thing I'd want to add for everybody to understand, it really still should be under the aegis of the SLA. And that's what part of the problem is. And DOT doesn't want to be an enforcement agency. And so I think we have some verbiage to it, right, Tammy? Didn't we come up with something around this?
I think we did. We've been working with our friends over in CB2 and 3, and some of the, just to give a broad range of how this works, let's say Alice, Betty, and I have 3 restaurants on the block. Alice is in the fortunate location. She has a very wide sidewalk out in front of her restaurant, so she has a sidewalk cafe, and she came to Community Board 1. She has all kinds of rules and steps on what she can do on the sidewalk cafe. In terms of COVID, she had an open restaurant area as well, so she has double the availability. Betty and I are on opposite ends of the corner. One has a city bike rack, so she couldn't have open restaurants. That's Betty's. And her sidewalk actually wasn't wide enough to be able to have anything outside. So she only has the inside of her restaurant. I'm at the other end of the block. I don't have a wide enough sidewalk, but I can do open restaurants. So I'm going to take my liquor license, which I have, that is mine for the inside until 4 a.m. And I'm going to open the front doors of my restaurant or bar and windows and put a television out there facing the open restaurant seating area so they could be a part of game night. And I have no restrictions thus far that are in place that prevent me from doing anything like that, because I never came for a sidewalk cafe license, and my license for inside goes to 4 a.m. So I'm grandfathered for whatever the outside is. Now, the outside will eventually have hours, like that could be general hours that are set up. That has not been determined yet.
Yeah, that's the problem we have a little bit with Greenwich Street Tavern that I mentioned when that was the first, when we had that person come from the nightlife committee, nightlife task for whatever that mayor's thing is.
Yep.
Last month. Yeah. So that was one of the issues. So loud.
Right. So Betty has no ability to do anything because she's in a spot that she has a city bike rack, so she can't do open restaurants. It's too narrow outside. She only has what she has. We want all three businesses to succeed. We want all three businesses to thrive. We want all three businesses to come back to life. We want to support the businesses, but we also want to support all the lovely people who live upstairs, who may not want that 4 a.m. that I have for my liquor license to apply to the outdoor restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not about hurting the business. It's about having them come and have a conversation. It also means that we need to take a look at every license that we issue in every liquor license and have a stipulation put in no matter what, whether they want a sidewalk cafe or not, or think they're ever going to have a sidewalk cafe or ever going to have restaurant seating. Every liquor license from here forward has to have some kind of stipulations, even if they say, well, we're not applying for that, because we don't know. And in the look of where we're going for New York City to make it more restaurant friendly, make it more business friendly, be able to have open restaurants in sections that really make great sense to enliven neighborhoods where it's a good thing, we want to support all of it. So there's a fine balance that we need to run with quality of life. And
it's a little bit of a paradox too when you think about it. You have a sidewalk cafe which is already licensed and regulated, and that's going to be at 1 a.m. or whatever, 12 midnight, and then they have just 6 feet away from it, they're open streets that can, it's the Wild West. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So, Mark, Lucian, and Betty, because I know Betty did some research on this as well with the Department of Transportation and local rules and things like that. We want to thread the needle finely to be able to support business and quality of life. So do we have that is the discussion for the night? Let's do some hands up and have people lay out some comments. I see Bruce, Susan, Betty, Colin.
Tammy, I'll just say that at our district service cabinet meeting, I did press on DOT to provide where in their rules the for open dining, how they when and how they mandate closure times. So for the set closure time, and this is something that I've been working with Mark on, something that we could hand to businesses and say, this is the statutory closing time. This is the statutory ban on having speakers, and show them exactly where it says that. So just I wanted you all to know that's something that we're trying to get from DOT.
Too bad. I guess I'm next. Too bad. I have an opinion on everything. Again, this issue requires comprehensive review. Department of Transportation, as far as I'm concerned, in the last 5 or 6 years, can't do what it's already charged with doing. As far as I'm concerned, it's a mess. The street restaurants, to me, in general, are fabulous. New York, looks like Paris. There's no regulation, which is a problem. DOT shouldn't be the one regulating. They can't regulate what they already have on their plate. And I do think it's a mess, but in principle, I think it's great for the city, great for the restaurateurs, so many of whom have gone out of business. And there are streets like Sullivan and McDougal from Washington Square Park to Houston where you cannot, it's so dangerous to drive down the street. There are other places, I can name innumerable ones, where it's been a real asset to the community. So I just think, again, we should be comprehensive about this.
Sorry about that. That's the benefit of being at home. Lots of people come talk to me. All right, Colin, you're next.
I'm just trying to watch this damn debate, and I wanted to get this over, but I got pulled in. Sorry. 631,000 jobs were lost. 36% of New York City small businesses were eradicated. They are already facing problems with storefront issues and vacancy before the pandemic even began because of $15 an hour, because of high rents, because of high taxes. The vast majority, the huge majority of people who lost their jobs, and more than 50% of business owners who lost their businesses are people of color. Are we really going to be so quick to jump down these people's throats for noise? I'm trying so hard not to just react right now, but this is what we do all the time. And it encroaches on NIMBYism more often than I care to remember. And it makes me want to leave this board every goddamn time we have a meeting. This is serious stuff. These are people who need jobs. These are people who are one paycheck away from poverty. This is $15 an hour people who need a job. Again, the vast majority of which are people of color. So can we be really careful about how we tell businesses they can or can't employ people? That's all I have to say. Thanks.
You're heard, Colin. Pat, and then Betty.
Yeah, but I think that the important thing is to try to balance. I don't think, Colin, we're saying we don't want the restaurants there. I think we're saying we want them to be equal and also to balance their needs with the needs of the community, because some of the people may be living above those restaurants also, have jobs that they need to get to and they need to sleep. So we can't have noise going on and rowdy, gatherings at 4 o'clock in the morning. I hear where you're coming from, Colin. I totally agree, but I think it's about balance.
Betty, and then Mariama.
My concern actually is about the timing of doing this resolution or discussion. It had been that the DOT rule was until 10 p.m. and then there was no noise anyway outside space that was out on the roads and sidewalk. So I'd be interested in hearing what Lucian comes up with from the DOT, and I'd ask him to please kind of press them on that. The SLA has always controlled the liquor license and still does. So that's kind of misleading when people say the SLA should control it, because they do and they always have. The DOT merely controls the space outside. There used to be closing hours. If they have gotten rid of them outside, I haven't seen that written. Obviously, it's in flux, otherwise Lucian would have gotten a more direct answer. The fact that we have so many people running for mayor who have been uniformly in support of this whole movement of outside restaurants, and the fact that the permanent program isn't even supposed to start for another year, means that even the DOT considers them in flux and says this is not sustainable the way it is now. I just don't know that we're writing anything that isn't going to look ludicrous in the very near future, because it's in flux.
I also don't know if DOT is the right organization to be in charge of this. They're in charge of street safety. So if they are only in charge of citing dimensions, that's one thing. But in terms of the process and not having community involvement, it should be, there is no the community involvement should be the same as a sidewalk cafe or a newsstand. It shouldn't be as of right, and to me, that's my own thing. And to find a balance, you need to be able to do that because DOT does not come to the community for permission, they come for notification, as we know.
Well, and that's why I think it's who becomes mayor, next mayor is the really critical piece and finding out who that is. Because if we get someone who wants to coordinate public space management, that would be wonderful. Because I think there is a missing piece there,
But the legislation that exists today is to put it under DOT. My sense is to say that the legislation should not be under DOT. It should be under an Office of Public Realm, and a different organization should lead that with a liaison to DOT for their expertise. That's my suggestion. All right.
Yeah, Tammy, that was basically what we thought at the committee.
All right, so Pat went, Betty went, Mariama, you're next.
I agree with you and Bruce and Pat 1,000%. Definitely support small businesses, but we've already had a couple of instances of some of these restaurants going, 1, 2, right under people's windows where they weren't able to do that prior to the pandemic. They didn't have permission to be open that long. So I think there are some people that are taking advantage of it too. And I understand they're trying to sustain themselves and save their businesses, but there must be balance. Some of the people that are inside trying to sleep are business owners, are job creators. So what do we do with them? We have to try to accommodate as many people as we can. And that's going to require some reasonability. So I totally agree with you guys and support the resolution.
Okay, Lucian, do you hear back from DOT based on our request?
No, not yet. I don't have that information yet.
So there's a couple ways that we can go about this. There's obviously, there's state legislature and there's city legislative bills out there. We can keep it very local and do a resolution saying that we support open restaurants, but we would like to have it under a public realm czar who will coordinate and have the community process involvement similar to sidewalk cafes or newsstands. So it comes to the community board, and that all outdoor beverage service complies with, goes with SLA, and even if they have an indoor license, that they come for review for outdoor space, outdoor public, that the indoor license isn't automatically with the same hours and stipulations meshed to the outside. That would encourage the whole process and provide us with an opportunity that if you have a 4 a.m. liquor license on the inside, you have to abide by whatever rules are going to go for the outside. Currently, NYPD does not have a place to stand because if they have a license till 4 a.m., they have a license till 4 a.m. So that, I think, threads the needle, addresses Collins' issues to ensure that we say that we support open restaurants. We are looking forward to seeing how we can work together with the city to transform it, but we do have quality of life and livability concerns. Does that
Tammy?
work? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said. Just want to remind everyone that we have a nighttime czar already that we were never able to get a hold of. So I think we're definitely have to put emphasis on that need for public engagement. There has to be somebody that's going to be responsive, not just, existing.
Agreed.
Well,
Expansion.
the nighttime czar did come to talk to us, but they came to talk to us about mediation. Remember, Miriam, they came to talk about mediation between between the restaurants and either a business next to it or residents above or next door to it. So she was there, but they're not taking, and they don't have any enforcement power. That's the problem.
Okay.
Yeah, they just want to mediate, and they want to work with the community board so that if we've had bad actors, they will try to mediate, but that's all that they're offering to do.
Yeah.
Right after that meeting, I sent a email to her and I copied everyone regards to a establishment and the issues they had, and they have speakers inside these structures and televisions and this and that, and they still have it. So I don't know whether she reached out to them or didn't, or she did. They didn't do anything. So I think for the resolution, we need to definitely reiterate or strongly say that it should not be Department of Transportation. And these structures, a lot of them are really de facto other buildings. So it's not like we're treating it as a sidewalk cafe. It's almost like it should be just treated as its own liquor license in a sense, the way they're built. Some of them are just so enormous and enclosed with windows and doors and latches and ventilation and this. So they're not, they're not just these, ad hoc, put together things. So I even think it's even above and beyond a sidewalk cafe review.
All right, so Lucian, can you, Gerald's going to be next, and then Bruce and goes back up. Lucian, can you do me a favor and start a doc so we can all take a look at it and we all know what we're talking about and signing on to for a resolution?
Sure, I'll have that up in a second.
Thank you. And in that meanwhile, Gerald?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend a lot of the restaurants in the area. I know that they're not necessarily owners aren't here right now, but I just wanted to remind everybody that there were many restaurant owners that I spoke with when we were out, and they were, they're at their wits' end trying to figure out ways to bring people in, trying to let everybody know that they're actually open. And a few of them for music venues. I don't know how. I can't speak up any louder. I have the microphone right up next to me. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
now I can.
All right, and so a lot of these restaurants would have outdoor music at various times throughout the week, and I know that the managers and the owners were very concerned about neighbors, and many of them they would make sure they were self-policing, I guess is what I want to say, and they would cut off at 10 o'clock at the latest. With very concerned about the neighborhood because they want to be good neighbors as well. That being said, I agree with what everybody is saying in regards to that the DOT really is not the entity that should be policing this, and many of these outdoor structures even it's questionable as to even how safe they are at this point. And they are becoming, I can think of a number of them that have become small entities outside in and of themselves. So my biggest concern is that it is fair and equal to both those living in the neighborhood and also those working in the neighborhood and the businesses that are trying to make a go at it, come back.
Okay. Bruce,
Well,
you're next.
Well, I wasn't going to speak, but after that, I feel I have to. This is an enormous issue, and we have to think when we're analyzing these structures and the committee discussions we've gone through regarding outdoor licensing. We have to think in terms of P and AP. The world will always be pre-pandemic and after pandemic. And we're right now in an AP moment. Again, I love what was said about jobs, people of color, people hanging on a thread who've lost a year and a half of wages. Talking about the temporary structures and so on, this is a crisis. And it is true that all of our fantasies about who will regulate what is utopian because the city can barely do what it's tasked with doing right now. with a crashed budget, limited staff, and a change in government. So I think this is a great discussion, but number one, it's fantasy, and number two, what should headline this discussion is jobs and businesses at this dangerous junction in time. Thanks.
So Bruce, based on your comments, do you have anything that you feel needs to go in here? Because we're only talking post-pandemic. We're talking
That's
about
right.
for the next year or two. We're not talking pre. We're talking
Right.
about how to recover and how to make sure that it's seamless, with the idea that whatever system we set up hopefully lasts for the next 10 years, that is supportive of business and quality of life. So do you have
Well-
any suggestions in that
well,
realm?
Yes. First of all, I don't. Do we have a resolution? I see
We are
boilerplate here.
working, we are working to put one together based on our experiences.
Ah,
Because the city council basically just has a legislation that says open restaurants will be permanent, operated by DOT. Details to be worked out.
there has. Okay, this is
We have
what I.
nothing.
This is what.
We have nothing. There's no process. There's no community board involvement.
Right.
There's no liquor license. It just says details will have to be worked out with the SLA at some time in the future.
This is what I think. I think we should note in our resolution that our primary concern is retention and expansion of jobs, especially minimum wage jobs, and the economic health of the city. That's our primary concern. Secondarily, there has to be a mechanism for community concern where such exists to be determined, because we can't determine that. That's a gigantic problem that the city is dealing with. And thirdly, yes, there has to be we're talking about extreme structural issues. Yes, if a structure obviously is going to collapse or burn down, there will be some kind of authority to condemn that structure. Those are, to me, those are the high points.
Okay. Next hand I see is Pat.
Are we trying to put together bullet points? Because my bullet points to then lead to a reso are that we have to balance quality of life with the ability for these businesses to continue to operate. And we need to, and you said this earlier, Tammy, we need to have a mechanism where the stipulations that are in existence for the businesses that already have liquor licenses to operate outside, that's fine. But for the ones who never had liquor licenses to operate outside, they need to come before the community board to be reviewed and to have stipulations for their outside operation. We need to have an agency that's behind this that has a enforcement ability and teeth, and DOT is not that agency. I don't know whether it's I'm having a senior moment with the agency I was thinking of. The one that's, oh darn.
If you're
Department
thinking
of
of something
Consumer
10 years ago,
Protection
you'd
and Worker
remember though.
Protection.
Well, I'm sorry, what was
Department
it?
of Consumer Affairs and Worker
Consumer
Protection.
Affairs, thank you.
It used
Department
to
of
be DCA,
Consumer
but now
Affairs.
it's DCWP. Yeah.
Yeah, the Department of Consumer Affairs used to be the department that handled this, although they don't have a lot of agents either. I mean, the problem is no one has a lot of agents to go around and actually review and work with all and million restaurants or however many restaurants are in the city. But at least we need some agency that has some teeth and can have enforcement ability. So if there's a bad actor, they can actually do something about it. What was the other thing? I think that gets us started with bullet points.
And thank you, Pat. Bruce, I have the first one of your three. I want to make sure I don't miss the other 2 points that you made. There's the bring the economy back point, and then there's 2 ones after that.
Is Bruce good?
I can work with Bruce offline to get those in later.
Bruce, you're muted.
I spoke to
I'm sorry,
a
it's not-
business owner 2 days ago. They said the Department of Health will be coming by once a week.
Yeah. Okay. So the points being, it's not only businesses. My major point, and it's been said before, was it Patrick? I'm not sure. The major concern here post-pandemic needs to be the retention and expansion of minimum wage and low wage jobs, and this is a primary feeder for that. We need to keep that in focus. Of course, item number 2 is there has to be some mechanism balancing particular neighborhood concerns should they arise. I don't think it needs to be defined. As a neighborhood runs into issues, there needs to be some mechanism of adjudication. And thirdly, yes, as for structural weaknesses, obviously, if one of these temporary, now permanent structures is about to collapse or blow up or cause a fire, it has to be condemned, and there are normal processes to do that. Those are my points.
Thank you.
But by the way, are we
No,
developing a
yes,
resolution
Bruce.
for tonight?
Yes, this is what we're doing. This is what we are working on. These are
Okay,
whereas is. And this
I have
is,
to jump. Okay, okay.
this is what we're doing. We're working in committee.
I see.
Colin.
Okay.
Sorry, while I was waiting, I actually just sent to the host some of my own messages. Bruce and I rarely agree, but one of the points I actually just put was about balance. I'm not sure who the host is, but if you just got my points, it's basically, look, for me to support this, not that my vote matters, I'm going to get outvoted, but you really need to defer to business owners here and to their employees. But I get the need for balance, as Bruce said, and I like that word a good deal. So if you see them, great. Otherwise, I can just say them to you. But whereas nearly 40% of New York City small businesses have closed as a result of the pandemic, whereas hundreds of thousands of small business employees, many of which are one paycheck away from poverty, blah, 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 blah. Whereas CB1 supports the ongoing efforts to help small businesses remain open outdoors as well as indoors, that kind of thing. But then hit it with, whereas balance must be found in ensuring that businesses thrive while the local community isn't displaced or overly burdened or something like that.
Lucy,
You want
can
me to
you
go to
copy
Whole Foods?
those and send those to
I'm
me?
not going to.
through
You
the
want me to
chat?
go to Whole Foods? Oh, good.
Bruce.
Hey, Bruce,
I don't
Oh,
care if you're
sorry.
Bruce.
Would someone go to Whole Foods for us, please?
Can somebody mute
I'll mute you.
Bruce?
I'll mute you. I'll mute. I'm coming back. I'll mute. I was just kidding. Hold on. Don't get excited. I'm muted.
All right, we're going to Alice, and then we're going to Jimmy, and then I'm gonna have my hand up, and we're going to me. Okay, Alice, you're next.
I have to come in and out, so I may have lost the thread here. In fact, I'm sure I did. So forgive me. I have a day job that comes into the night. But is this the legislation about open restaurants? Is this what we're talking? I mean, I'm kind of lost here. We should have the legislation sent to us so we can see it while we're discussing it, because it wasn't just a 2-liner. There was like 5 pages that were quite detailed, and I just think we're not doing it justice here without sort of reviewing it a little bit more, again, with specifics. But I would just say, as an example of, seeing 2 sides to this, that I often walk the streets of New York and think, I can't afford to go into 90% of those restaurants. So what happens to the person who walks by what I walked by the other day, the Cocoon, the new private, whatever it is, children's gymnasium, and they have taken over a good 250 square feet, I would wager, of the sidewalk, which was not approved to my knowledge, or maybe it was, but for their purposes as a private club. Now, I don't know where this fits into the equity argument, but there is equity issue on both sides of this coin, which needs to be addressed, which is the public space issue, and public space that doesn't require someone to pay for it, to sit in it or walk on it. So I don't know where that comes and where it's different, but I would like that acknowledged. We often forget about that. And so I don't know, and particularly vis-a-vis enclosed sidewalk cafes, which I recall in having read the legislation seems very cursory and very questionable as to permanent structures on our streets. An allowance without significant community board review seems critical to have. So I just add that to the argument. Again, my apologies, I sort of came in and out of this.
Well, thank you, Alice. Jimmy, you're next.
Me, myself. All right. I think that listening to everybody's opinion, I think is really, really good. I think we all agree that we want something sustainable, right? We want something that's sustainable so the restaurant can continue to provide jobs and their services. And we also want the structure itself to be sustainable, safety, right? I mean, really, I'm not sure because exactly, is there any kind of rules that how these things are supposed to be built? And I think one of the members is right. If there's a storm, it could easily have a lot of problems. So if we do it right, this could be tremendous. I mean, I grew up in a city where night market is the thing. People travel from all over the world have it. But I also see the evolution coming from an organic situation to something very well regulated and sustainable. And this is something that's very, very important for us to contribute. And I can tell you right now, one thing for sure, DOT does not have the expertise and the know-how to do this. That's not what they do. So I think perhaps the city should come up with, I think like Tammy said, some sort of czar, right? Some kind of coordinator to coordinate everything, because this involves traffic, it involves public health, cleanliness, right? And quality of life. This is something very unique, and it's an opportunity to do it right so it can work in the long run.
Cool. Lucian, I see we urge DOT to involve CB1. That's kind of not where I'm going. I'm working on, I was more going for, from my perspective, is that any kind of, process that goes on the public street or the public sidewalk should have a community board process similar to newsstands, sidewalk cafes, and other placements in the public realm. So I don't want to, it's not about including CB1, it's about including community boards overall, because I don't want to opine on what's going on in CB4. Colin, you're back, and then Jimmy again, if your hand's still up.
Yeah, I just texted that point to Lucian about, this is definitely off topic, but while we're at it, CB1 did pass several resolutions asking him to ease the regulatory and tax burden on these businesses. Surely they would have an easier time moving back indoors and limiting outdoor dining if they actually listen to our resolutions. So I would actually love for that to be included.
Hey, Colin, can you clarify how that works in terms of restaurants and their, what they would pay for sidewalk cafes in the past? What is the way this is working now? Does anyone know that? Can you answer that?
I don't know the answer to that. No, sorry.
So because in the past, if you got a sidewalk cafe, you paid for it. You took city property and you paid rent to the city for it at a much less rate, of course, than your interior. But I'm just curious how this is working. It would be helpful to understand that. Lucian, do you know if somebody knows? I would love to get clarity on that.
I mean, there was initial talk of application fees, but they waived all application fees for everything at a certain point. I have no idea if that's still.
Alice, in the legislation that passed, there is a provision for DOT rulemaking to set a fee schedule for the use of open streets. So there is a pathway towards restaurants paying for the ability to put placements out in the public realm. However, there's no preview or kind of financial explanation of how they would set those fees at this point. But I would expect to see rulemaking sometime in the near future for that very thing.
Thanks.
So then to meet the balance and need, we should be able to say, we urge them to continue to waive fees for the for the year, the 1 year extension. But then, during that time, work with the community to figure out both business and residential community.
I do think it's really important here to emphasize the city's attempt to hike taxes and fees on them again, despite everything that's happened the last 15 months and despite their empty promises to help small business. They're talking about raising fees and taxes again to make up for their budget shortfall. So this is our chance to throw something in there about it. And I think we should.
I agree with Colin. We have the same argument with the co-ops and condos, like here you come with some sort of relief and then here you come again, a few minutes later with new taxes.
Yeah. It's like they're raising taxes to pay for the relief that they just gave you. It's insane.
Right.
You mean like you have to take these 67 affordable units and we're going to let the 300 units that are 4 blocks away be privatized?
Yeah.
Or
do me like that.
Or maybe like they did to CB2, hey, please approve all this fantastic ULURP zoning. You're going to get affordable housing out of it. And then DCP waives the requirement for affordable housing and there's office buildings being built across from Pier 40. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Just like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have my hand up. The other thing that I wanted to say. Oh, sorry.
At the end of the day, it was the government that told these businesses they couldn't operate and generate revenue and profits. But when it's time to come to collect fees and taxes, God forbid, man, you better pay that, or they're gonna come and shut you down again. So it's disgusting hypocrisy in the part of the government. So the word that should be used is that regulatory fees and taxes should be rescinded for a period of time to allow these businesses to recover, because it was the state that shut them down.
Tammy, can I jump in?
Yeah, because Mark, I don't think that's not related to where we're going for the open restaurants. That is part of a resolution that Colin, I believe, has already done in the small business working group, right, Colin?
We passed it, and it was specifically the GCT tax, payroll tax, and a since adopted by the IRS credit per retained employee credit.
Well, use the terminology rescinding or rescind. There's no ambiguity in that.
Mark, I'd be happy to entertain that in the next small business subcommittee. I really would. But
perfect. All right, so let's take Mark. Mark,
if that's okay. Yeah.
Let's take that.
Come back to me.
I'll come back to you, but let's take it. It's not right for this resolution for where we're trying to go on this. But it is
I have
right.
something for the resolution. I have something for it.
Okay, keep it focused to this resolution, and Colin will talk to Patrick about your idea for next month.
So the preamble to this resolution is too much, I think, a little infighting here of this is the priority, that's the priority. They're all priorities, and they necessarily shouldn't be prioritized in number order. So I think the preamble to this resolution, so they know where we're coming from, should be something to the words of the effect of that the pandemic and subsequent shutdown was an enormous burden on businesses and residents alike. We need to recognize that there's a balance between the businesses recouping their revenue and the quality of life of residents. And then you go into suggest this, suggest that, and on. But it should start off that way, so it's not tilted one way or the other right off the bat.
Lucian,
I want
did you, Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add, so I brought up the balance initially between the, you know, the quality of life, the residents and the businesses, but we also need to have quality of balance and parity between the restaurants. As you brought up an example early on, the restaurants on the same block. They all need to, someone, again, an enforcement agency, they all need to have, for instance, the same closing times, the same standard of construction, which we talked about, you know, construction of the outside structures. There needs to be some way of regulating that they all are doing the same thing. So in a way, one restaurant doesn't have an advantage over another.
Equal opportunity for all, I think is the right answer. Okay. So are we at a point, I see Mark, your hand is still up. I don't know if it's because you're.
Are you okay, Tammy, with the way I phrased at least the preamble to kind of balance that out?
I gotta take
So
a look at that.
don't on me, so.
I think the top line needs to be in a couple different ones. I don't think it's one. All right, Jimmy, did you have your hand still up?
Yeah, but really quick, I wonder, is it possible to put some sort of language in there to say that we want to get the restaurants involved? Like the city should make sure that, I mean, the restaurant should be involved in this, right? And number two is that just I have concern that if we regulate too much to a point that only kind of big chain restaurant can afford to do this, and the mom and pop just have to give up because it's just maybe the rules and regulation will be just too much, and then we end up with a bunch of, you know, chain restaurants in the neighborhood.
So I think there we can address that by saying that any potential fee structure should take into account size, you know, size of a company. So, you know, if you're if big chains pay more than mom and pops, right? If you're only a restaurant that pays a little bit, that only has, you know, you're a small $100,000 a month restaurant, you pay less than the chain that's, you know, some kind of economies of scale.
Yeah, kind of protect the local moms and pop, you know, restaurants.
Yep. Yep. All right. I agree. Gerald?
Yeah, is this better with my microphone by chance?
By far better, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. All right. So one question about the structures. I mean, you know, when the pandemic started, there were no regulations, and we would see various restaurants enclose their space, their outdoor space, to various degrees. Some more open than others, and you know, our understanding at the time was we needed a lot of ventilation. That was the reason everybody was moving out to the streets. As time went on, you know, I can think of a number of restaurants that have fully enclosed their outdoor spaces. I'm told by other property owners that, you know, they do have ventilation within those spaces now, or maybe air exchangers or whatever. I don't know specifically, but I guess my question is there anything we can say in this resolution that, you know, I understand the need for, if you're going to take over a parking spot, possibly putting some sort of shelter over top. But when it gets to a point where everything is fully enclosed, aren't you, I mean, effectively along the lines of what others were saying, are you not taking over public space at that point? You know, and I don't know where the DOB was on any of this, but some of these structures have become very elaborate. And again, I guess my question is, can we put this in the resolution where these spaces really do need, the structures need to be regulated to the point, not over regulated, but they really should not be fully enclosed spaces. They're not an outdoor cafe at that point. They're an extension of the indoor restaurant.
Agreed. And that's part and parcel of the problem, that there are no rules and guidelines along with this. Francis, your hand has not.
That's what I, well, it should be considered for its own liquor license. That's
Mark?
what I said earlier.
Yes, it has to be in there. Frank, you are a source unheard of yet.
Just, following up on the space issue, what I was thinking is, and like everybody, not to overregulate, but I'm thinking like some restaurants have taken more advantage than others, and smaller restaurants who had limited seating out inside now have doubled their capacity by taking up the space on the in the street. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of way we could look at, if what your capacity is inside versus your ability to take space outside. Because just to look at one, the pizza shop on the corner of Nassau and Fulton Street, excuse me, he had like stand-up space, like 3 people. Now he can get 20 people sitting outside on that corner, and he takes up a big space there. And but then the other side of it is the other restaurant on Ann Street, which really gets screwed because it's a small street and it gets shut down, and there's really no site. There's no way for them to use the parking spaces because the parking spaces are allotted to municipal vehicles, and I mean there's all kinds of issues going on with the Claudio, that space over there. So I don't know. My thinking is in terms of the something that addresses the comparison of the capacity indoors versus what they're allowed to take outside. Because some people have large capacity inside and are also spreading out with these elaborate structures on the outside too. So I don't know what people think about that. That's my thought.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not, Lucian, can you think of a succinct way to have that go into considerations need to be, I don't know if considerations need to be, I mean, ideally you want them all to survive, so it's hard to say.
Francis, would you say that capacity limitation should be how many people the kitchen can serve, rather than, how much space is available out front in terms of the right
Probably
sizing?
works out to be the same thing. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Trust me. A kitchen can serve, a pizza place kitchen can serve thousands if they have to. That's not. That's a slippery slope. Betty?
Okay. Well,
Sorry. I was going to say that the space outside should, and the cost of the space outside should ultimately reflect what is available to them in the rented indoor space. Because there's no way that the city should not be getting any money. We should be growing all the business outside, so they're really just renting a kitchen and then using public space to run their business on. We don't want to go down that route either. So it really is very much, it should be proportionate to the amount of space that they have indoors, not just the front for seating, as well as the rent. If it's a very high rent area, they also, why are we giving it to them for free, only to greatly expand at the cost of
their
the public?
business.
Yes.
Exactly. And in terms of what Mark was saying about then they can serve liquor out there, so they expand their business to a wider area. Thanks, Betty, for clarifying it a little better than I did.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate that. Betty, do you have anything else? Andrew's hand is up, sorry. So after you, I'm going to Andrew.
Well, I just want to add that some of the things that people were reflecting about how built up these structures are. The rules from the DOT still do not allow a lot of what is out there on the street. So it's a lack of enforcement is the bigger issue for the rules that exist. But the thing that I looked at when I looked at the legislation is they do talk about grandfathering in fully enclosed structures, but they don't specify in the law grandfathering whom. Grandfathering those that were built before 1965? Are we grandfathering those that exist as of this minute that the law passes? That would be that needs to be defined.
I thought it was pre-pandemic, Betty, wasn't it?
There's no terminology in there. Correct, Betty? There's no terminology.
Correct, there isn't any. That's why I think that needs to be clarified in the legislation.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. I don't, oh, Andrew, you're next.
So listening to the conversation and all the points that have been made, which I think are valuable and valid, but it feels like the scope of this resolution is potentially endless, and we're getting granular on topics that certainly I don't have a great understanding of, operating models of pizzerias versus fine Italian dining, for example. I'm wondering, is there a way we can just make an overarching statement, something along the lines of, we're asking the city to create a framework that fosters equity among all establishments that are participating in the program, a balance between small business and residential quality of life, and 3, ensuring that the structures that are being put up or built are in line with, building code or acceptable standards or whatever the appropriate language is. It just, some of the granularity here, it's hard to follow, quite honestly.
I hear you. I think we need some granularity to get some of the things we can say included but not limited to. I think is a good way to go on that. Otherwise, I think it's kind of meaningless. It's too general and too broad. You understand what I mean by that?
Yep. Oh, fair point.
Yeah, because, yeah.
Well, can I suggest that some of the granular is actually whereas statements, where the more overarching would be to therefore be it resolved? Suggestion.
Works for me. Does that work for others? Okay. Are we?
I just wanted to quickly resolve a little bit of a conflict here. We have some fee structure stuff. One, and if anybody's not muted, please mute. One is that we want them to delay the fee until the restaurants get back on track. But when it does, I just want to make sure that I'm following. When they do get assessed the fee should reflect neighborhood rents, but on a continuum with independent restaurants being on the lower end and chain or larger establishments being on the higher end. Is everyone okay with that?
So I'm
Make sure
curious,
that all
what
jives.
I don't think that we should talk about local rent prices per square foot because no, I kind of, we don't get into the rent business. That's a private property issue, although we all kind of think that the rent's too damn high and that's part of the problem down here. But I think we can opine on the fee structure. I kind of want to stay away from telling a business owner how much he can charge. That's just me. Andrew, sorry to cut you off.
No, and again, I'm I was just going to say, but again, I'm violating my own comment about getting too granular. But for example, the McDonald's at Chambers Street, is that a nationally owned operation? Is that a franchisee who might only have that one McDonald's? How do we define sort of a big chain national versus that could very well be a small business for someone?
That's true.
I think that we can qualify what's considered a small business as a, within the confines of how the city defines it. I don't think that's going to be hard because yes, if it's an independent restaurant, even if it's a branded chain, it's an independent. He doesn't own, 12 of them, 50 of them, whatever the case may be. Okay, anybody else have hands up? Does anybody feel we're ready to, and Jimmy, your hand
Yes,
back.
sorry, I just, maybe I'll clarify it. I'm mainly concerned about there should be some sort of rules to, some kind of regulation to make sure these structures are safe and clean. And now, so once we have those rules, I'm concerned about is that some of the mom and pops might not be able to afford to follow those rules, right? Get the structure up to those codes. So what we can do is that we should probably offer an opportunity for them to apply for city grants and support so they can make sure that their structure is safe and clean. Because otherwise we'll create an ecosystem that only the people with enough resources will be able to survive in the restaurant industry. Right? They have basically an arms race, like a competitive advantage, because they're the only one who can overnight put all the things up to code, whereas the mom and pop just gonna give up because they don't have the resources. So those who does not have the resources, I think is maybe the government can help them to get them up to those codes. So when we come with those standards, right, never compromise on safety and health, but we're gonna help those who want to do it with the resources they don't have it. Hopefully that helps.
Well, that's what I had said, Jimmy. Yeah, that they should be equity between, restaurants that are on the same block so that one person doesn't build a palace while another person has a mud hut. There has to be some sort of basic outline of a structure that pretty much is affordable to everyone. And restaurants should have to adhere to that structure and not build these elaborate things.
All right, so with that in hand, are we ready to call the question? I see Pat nodding his head. I'm going to say that, Pat, I say I'm calling. Pat, is that a second?
That's a second.
All right, let's roll it. Now, we worked on this in committee. So this is draft in committee. It'll go out for everybody for full board next week with all the details that we put in here. It'll be a little bit cleaner and nicer. All right, so we're going to run the same way we've run other things. If you object, I'm going to call all yays. A nay, say your name, and a no. If you abstain, it's a name and abstain. And I don't think anybody needs to recuse based on our board. All right, so are there any no's? Colin, you still paying attention? Just checking.
Yes, I'm paying attention and I'm okay with it.
Okay, are there any abstentions?
Blank abstains.
Fantastic.
Kay abstains. I don't know what we're voting on even.
Exactly.
All the things we just put in the Word doc and asking the city to figure out a pathway that includes the community board and a public realms are to coordinate all of this. All right, so Kay abstained, Blank abstains. Are there any other abstentions? Fantastic, motion passes. So It is 8:12. I did promise that we would end somewhat soon. So here's where we're going to roll on committee reports. Again, just so we can make it faster. If you have something that will be highly controversial, please let us know. Before we go to committee reports, Lucian, can I share screen, please?
Sure, give me a second.
This is like, you know, we always want to try and get everybody sort of a long-term look in the future. So I want you guys to take a look at this. Okie dokie. Does everybody see the calendar that I have up? Do you see the September calendar?
Yeah, can you make it just a little bit bigger?
I can sure try.
Tiny, tiny, tiny.
Okay, that's about as big as I can go.
Amy, next to the paintbrush, there's 100%. Click on that. Keep going to the right. Yeah, and drop it down.
Okay. There we go. All right, so here we go. Thank you, Lucian. This is September. I bring this up now because we have meetings in July, and then we ideally, if it is a gracious, good August, you will not see each other unless you want to meet for a cocktail. And then we all resume in September. But the Jewish holidays present challenges for meetings. Anything that is in purple is being moved due to the Jewish holidays. So please take a careful look. We have moved every other committee, including the full board meeting, potentially, depending on where we can get space. Only landmarks, land use, and youth and ed will function on the same nights. So take a quick look at this. We will be sending it out to everybody. I still have a couple chairs who have to confirm that it works for them, but this is the current plan. I just give it as an early heads up and warning that we will need to move all of the meetings. Okay?
I'm sorry, you're saying that if it's in purple, it stays where it is.
Pat, we're moving you 1 week. You should have been September 16th. You'd move to the 23rd.
Oh, I see. I see.
Right, and Battery Park City moved from the 1st or 2nd to the 22nd, if I could remember.
Correct. Battery Park City would move from the first Wednesday to the third. Licensing would operate the same night. We have to take a look at the overlap on who serves on what committee to make sure everybody has quorum. Transportation moves from the first Tuesday to the second. Again, we're gonna, need to move and take a look at to make sure that everybody has quorum. And then for Sukkot, for environmental, would have to move off the 20th to the 27th. Waterfront and Parks would move to the 28th. Executive Committee would move to the 29th. And then full board would move from Tuesday to Thursday. We just have to get everything approved. It's a lot of change. I just want to confirm. It's not final yet, but I need everybody to be aware that your committee dates will probably have to change for September. Okay?
All right, that's fair. Let me make sure I can talk to the committee to make sure, but otherwise, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
No
And so
decision.
I think that's really smart because that week is also the same week as 9/11 and the 20th anniversary, and there's going to be tons of stuff going on in this district.
Yep. Yeah. It'll be a fantastic week. So on that note, as a committee chair, check with your office person. And so you don't have to come to me, go to Lucian, Jen, or Diana. Let's figure it all out and let's make a plan for the fall so we know in advance. And on that, I'm going to go through.
This is Mark. I'm on the phone, so can Lucian, can you email? I know it's preliminary, but can you email me that just so I can kind of pencil it in? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, Mark, we definitely will. Don't worry.
Thanks.
So
As soon as, yeah.
on that note, if you have if you think it's going to be highly controversial for full board, tell me. I don't need a full report here. I just need to know what will be controversial based on your committee meetings this month, and then we will wrap up the meeting. So, going to Justine first. I'm sorry, Betty first. Do you have anything that's highly controversial from the month?
No.
Fantastic. Justine?
Yeah, I don't think so either. I have a resolution, but it passed, so.
Awesome. Bruce? I'll assume no, because I think he's one.
Nothing uncontroversial, nothing controversial.
Perfect. Land use, I already know. Oh, brother. Okay, youth and ed, Trisha? She's at another meeting at the moment, so if she doesn't, we'll come back to her at the end. Mark or Susan, anything controversial that we need to know about?
Not really. I chaired the meeting because Susan wasn't there. Nothing controversial. There was a hotel that requested 4 a.m. license. We went on and on for that, and then we rejected it. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Pat?
It will not be controversial once I clarify that our discussion about the borough-based jail was only about construction issues. It's not about design. It's not land use. It's only about noise, drugs, routes, everything that we deal with in quality of life when it comes to any construction or deconstruction issue.
Gotcha. Alrighty, that brings me to environmental. Alice?
Nope.
Awesome. Paul, parks, waterfront?
Nothing controversial.
Executive? Paul, did you have more?
No.
Awesome, thank you. Executive, we're done. So that's it. Let's wind up our executive meeting for the night. Welcome to all our new board members. Thanks for hanging in. You've now seen what happens here. At the full board, what's different for our new board members, they'll get a minute to say hello to everybody, and their committee assignments will be done before full board. So you will, as the chairs of the committees, you'll get your new assignees. I am still doing mentors for board members. If you are absolutely 100% that you would like to mentor, please email Lucian and I, and we will ensure you get somebody. If not, you'll be voluntold. Sorry.
You'll volunteer us?
Voluntold.
You know, I don't mind mentoring, so if someone wants to be my mentee, that's great. I hope someone will join Quality of Life.
Yes, 7 fantastic new board members, so they will be sprinkled everywhere, which is really great.
And Tammy, the BMCC thing that was scheduled for tomorrow has been postponed to September, right?
Correct. We actually will be able to do a far more robust. We're actually looking at October based on the September calendar.
Okay.
I see Trisha back. Trisha, did you have any highly controversial things, even though your entire committee is controversial right now?
I put it in the chat, but no, we're still waiting to hear back from the SCA. I never heard back from Michael Marisola, so maybe I'll have an update by the full board.
Okay, awesome. Maybe even the DOE might figure out high school admissions by then.
Exactly.
Alrighty, on that note, it's been a really busy month. I went to 3 ribbon cuttings, just so everybody knows. I'll report out at the full board, but Pier 76 is open, Bogardus Plaza is open, and goodness gracious, I can't remember the third one and the naming of the bridge, which Justine joined me at, which was lovely. The Robert R. Douglas Bridge, which is formerly known as the West Thames Bridge. So on that note, it is 8:21. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your lovely evenings, and I will see you at the full board.
We need to think about having a gathering, since we didn't do our holiday party. Maybe in August, we might have a gathering. We'll talk about it.
That's a good idea.
Picnic, I love it.
Thanks.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. That's true. I'm sorry I missed the early part of the meeting, Tammy.
Pretty good first meeting for everybody.
Yeah.
We weren't too controversial or too. Bruce, we got to get Bruce with that mute button.
And his shopping. I wanted him to go to Whole Foods for me, too.
Yeah, I need some Whole Foods. All right, night, everybody.